What is going on, everybody? I am back with a brand new video, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about flight numbers and why they kind of matter, but also not really. Let's hop into it. Flight numbers are the numbers that you'll see on the front of a disc. Those numbers are there to give you an idea of how that disc is going to fly. Like, will it be overstable or understable? Will it be neutral, or will it be that perfect touch of stable? The first number is going to be the speed of the disc, followed by its glide, turn, and fade. Now, I titled this video as if flight numbers are useless, so let's talk about it. You see, you can read flight numbers all day long, but there are many different types of variables when it comes to how a disc is actually going to fly. The first thing that comes to mind is simply your arm speed. You see, I have a Leopard 3 at a 7 speed, and then I have a Nuke at a 13 speed. As you can see, both discs fight to the ground very hard, and they also don't really go very far. And this is because you probably don't have the arm speed for a Speed 7 disc. How fast is Speed 7? Honestly, who's to say? And this is the first fumble in flight numbers, because this will be something you have to learn as you keep throwing more and more discs. As your form improves, you'll see these discs react differently, and then you can have an idea of how fast, say, a Speed 7 or a Speed 13 is. Now, let's say you got your arm speed up and you feel like you have the juice to throw all the way up to a 13 speed disc. Does this mean flight numbers are more accurate? I would say yes and no. And I say this because there are even more variables that play a factor in how a disc is going to fly, like the plastic of the disc. Here I have a jawbreaker zone and I have an ESP zone. These would be advertised as the same flight numbers because it's the same mold. But as you can hopefully see in this clip, the ESP zone kind of gets to the ground a little bit quicker, it gets right a little bit faster, and then the jawbreaker zone is going to push straighter for a little bit longer and then have its fade. Now, this is all due to the type of plastic, so that means all molds in different plastics could fly a little bit differently, but they're going to have the same flight numbers. The only mold that I can think of off the top of my head, there might be more, is the Shrike. And with the Shrike in Champion Plastic and Halo Plastic, I do think they switched the flight numbers just slightly, I think. One of the next factors could be the weight of a disc. Not only do lighter weight discs move around in the wind a little bit more, but they can also have different flight paths. In this shot, I have a lightweight nuke in the first shot and then a max weight nuke in the second. Hopefully you can kind of see how that lightweight one goes a bit straighter, has a little less of a fade. And with the max weight disc, you can see it still goes relatively straight, but at the end of its flight, it has a much more overstable finish. Those two discs were the same mold, same plastic, just different weight, and they still get a little bit of a different flight out of them, even though the flight numbers suggest that they would fly exactly the same. The next thing I could think of is how beaten in a disc is. Now, this is definitely a little bit of a stretch because flight numbers are geared to brand new discs. But if you do get a disc off the used rack or from a friend, it is important to note that it could fly differently than what the flight numbers suggest. And that is simply due to how much that disc has been used. For example, here is an older Leopard 3 versus a newer Leopard 3. Same mold, same plastic, just older versus newer. And in those flights, you can see that the older one is much easier to get turning just a little bit. And then that newer one is more straight and it has a subtle fade to the end. Now, what's good about that comparison is that is the same run of disc. So not only is it the same mold and plastic, but they were produced at the same time. Now, my last argument to why flight numbers kind of matter, but also don't really matter, is because you could have the same disc, so same mold, same weight, and same plastic, but they have slightly different flight characteristics. Now, this one, especially with the disc I have today, is a little bit picky, not gonna lie. But here I have this orange Hades that is rather flat. And I also have a tan Hades that has a little bit more of a pop top to it. So even though these are the same mold, apparently they aren't the same run because they're shaped a little bit differently. So we're just gonna go ahead and throw these and just talk about the subtle difference that they have, even though they're the same exact disc. That one doesn't quite flip up all the way to flat, and it pushes heavy to the left at the end of its flight. Then the tan one is gonna flip up to flat. It'll still have a nice fade on the end of its flight. Now, hopefully, I know it might be a little difficult to see in that blue sky, but you could see the tan one flips all the way up to flat and it goes dead straight until it fades. And then the orange one doesn't quite necessarily get all the way up to flat. It kind of just rides hyzer the whole way there. Now, these are very, very subtle differences in the flight, but if we want to get picky with flight numbers and if they're really, really accurate, I do think there would be some changes there, but clearly they're going to be the same flight numbers. It would probably be way too hard for the companies, the brands, to continue changing flight numbers for each run of discs. Like, that's kind of nonsense. I just wish we had a more accurate reading to how discs are supposed to fly, especially when it comes to speed. I feel like I get the question often, how fast is a speed 7? Well, I don't really know, other than just throw more and more discs and you're gonna figure out if you can throw a speed 7 disc. I just think flight numbers in general are very confusing, especially for newer players and also players that have been playing for a long time trying to explain it. I think it's kind of a hard topic to explain because of all of the variables. Now, in my opinion, do I think flight numbers are completely useless? I would say no, I don't think they are completely useless because it does give you a general idea of how that disc is going to fly. But in order to have an understanding of those numbers and how they will fly for you and your arm speed, you're gonna have to throw a whole lot of discs. I believe once you start improving your form and gaining a faster arm speed, that these numbers are going to continue to evolve for you and start meaning something a little bit different. Overall, what do you guys think about flight numbers? Do you pay a whole lot of attention to them, or do you kind of get your general sense of the disc and then you go through it and decide, you know, oh, it flies like the flight numbers or it flies nothing like the flight numbers? Who really knows? Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you on the next one.